Transition, the process of change from one condition to another.
We are now at a new crossroad where change is evident once again.
What does not serve us must transform us anew.
Returning to our original state of oneness and true nature of that which created who we truly are.
Confusion was the way of the past. Enlightenment is the way of the now and future, shedding away the layers of deceit.
We now bring you the transformation of the two who started as one. Our fearless planet never stands still.
Earth has been in a process of transition, and we are not exempt from this remarkable ongoing reality.
Welcome to Transition Radio.
Well, good evening. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. And for those of you that will tune in later, thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing, hitting that notification button, and for sharing the great information that my wife works so hard to bring you twice a week. This is not an easy job. And the pay is not that great, actually, but, we enjoy it, and I hope you guys do too. So what did you think about that Pam Bondi woman? My goodness gracious.
Yeah, to have I used to have this respect for Christians in a sense in the past because I thought they stood for like decency and love and respect and honor and, the respect for the rule of law. But what we saw yesterday was a woman wearing a crucifix.
Oh, as they all do.
And literally lying. And then there's this one shot of her with the victims in the background. Her face is out of focus. And that someone said that'll go down as one of the most classic all-time embarrassing moments in the history of the United States because this woman failed to even turn around and acknowledge that.
Well, the man they claimed to follow, Jesus, would be turning over on his grave right now and be so upset. He clearly told you guys, you will know them by their fruit. And boy, that fruit of your guys is so rotten, so spoiled, and so nasty. And they think that they're doing the right thing, but they are hypocrites, they're thieves, they're liars.
It goes so far back, you guys. It's like the foundation for this ugly, ugly, ugly society that we live in now was set a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
And you're going to find out how long ago it was. And you're going to be shocked to know just how deep the rabbit trail goes. We've done shows about Yahweh in the past.
Yeah.
And this one has that, but it's even
deeper.
Yeah.
It's just the more and more we dig and go down that rabbit hole, the more and more we learn how corrupt the system is, how corrupt the God of the Bible is, how corrupt the cult and religions that claim to follow Jesus are.
This isn't in the show today. And yes, it's on a prompter. Just letting you know. We have a prompter right here. We're going to read from it.
Yeah.
Mariah.
And then you have to. You can't memorize all this stuff. It's information, important information that we have put together. And, it's important for people to learn and understand.
But don't worry. We will do some bantering along.
Of course.
Sometimes I ad lib and do things to make it not be robotic. And we don't want a robotic show.
No.
But, when you look at the whole essence of what it is to be human, the dividing of the male and the female in the garden, the story of Adam and Eve, and the whole splitting and this rib taking, and this whole thing about the first, Christians use and the first wedding was in Eden, and he said, you are flesh of my flesh and bone of my bone. And they have these Christian songs of love. And the whole family, the nuclear family, and how, one man, one woman. And the reality was that we weren't that. For hundreds of thousands of years before this 10,000 year lie that we've been living came about, we were communities. We were living in an economy of human respect and dignity. We were trading with each other. We were knowing our neighbor. We were not just the one that was in charge of taking care of our baby, but when we got tired, we could have our friend take care of our baby.
The village, the tribe.
It was a village.
Yeah.
And Hillary got
she got that right.
Excoriated for it. Back in the day, I remember Christians were like, oh, that's communism.
And like
everything's communism.
And do you understand what the word commune means? Community. We need, like, there's an old saying in Spanish, la mano derecha lava la otra mano. You need, one hand washes the other. You need both hands. You can't wash one hand with just one hand. It doesn't work. You need each other, and you need a community.
But this
social.
Came from somewhere.
Yeah.
This came from somewhere.
Yeah.
And the basis of where it came from.
Drum roll, please. I'll decide to play
Nice.
like that.
All right, we got some life on the show. You gonna dance next?
Oh, we're gonna
We don't have the camera for that. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Or we could also do.
Oh boy,
Oh,
you're gonna have fun today.
I just decided to, make it a little.
Yeah, we pay for it.
Might as well.
We pay for it. Might
Might as well use it.
Because StreamYard's not free yet.
No, we have to pay for the.
Notice we don't have the StreamYard logo on there. It's because we're on the subscriber feed.
What? It's hard.
Oh wow.
Or if people think we suck.
Oh.
Anyway, that was that fun of that. I just wanted to play with that stuff for a little bit, and so we're gonna get started. We're gonna read from the script, all right? So, have you ever noticed that even when we're surrounded by people in a crowded city, a packed subway, or a busy office, we still feel like we're on an island?
Not Epstein.
No, not that one. God forbid. Like there's this invisible wall between us and every other person we pass on the street.
If you feel like that, it's not just you. That feeling is actually a symptom of a much larger design. If we look at the long history of humans, about 300,000 years of it, believe it or not, it's not just 6.
Yep.
We lived in what we call the village. It wasn't just a place with houses. It was a way of existing. In the village, survival was a shared project. If one person caught a fish, the neighborhood ate. If a mother was tired, 5 other people could watch the baby. There was no mine or yours in the way we think of it today.
But then, about 10,000 years ago, something shifted. We started farming. We started staying in one place. And for the first time in history, we had a surplus. We had an extra pile of grain that we didn't need to eat right that second.
And that extra pile of grain is the exact moment the system
Yes.
was born. Because as soon as there was a pile, here's vignette 1.
As soon as there was a pile, let me see, I got to go down here, vignette number 1.
For most of our history, survival was something we did together. If one person found food, everyone ate.
If one mother was tired, another carried the child.
Belonging wasn't an idea, it was the air. For the first time, we had more than we needed.
And then, something changed.
For the first time in human history, there was more than the day required, more than hunger demanded, and that excess, small at first, changed everything. And once there was a pile, someone had to decide who it belonged to.
The circle became a boundary.
The heartbeat became a record. The record became a ledger.
and the ledger became the system we live inside today.
Someone had to decide who owned it. Someone had to keep a record. Someone had to build a fence. That pile of grain turned us from neighbors into accountants. It turned the heartbeat into the ledger.
To understand why our world feels so cold and competitive today, we have to go back to the desert. This is where the blueprint for how we live now was actually drawn.
Casey Malone, a YouTuber who has been doing the heavy lifting on connecting our history to our modern problems, points out that our ideas of power started with the emergence of the quote unquote storm god.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the singular male authority figures like Yahweh. Now, this isn't about attacking anyone's faith. We've done that already.
Yeah.
It's about looking at the source code of our culture.
In the dry, harsh environments of the desert, life was a struggle. Resources were scarce. You couldn't just walk into the forest and find food or your local 7-Eleven. You had to fight for it. You had to compete with other tribes. And so the people there created a god that mirrored that reality.
And we have another vignette.
Vignette número dos.
In the desert, survival was precise. There was no excess, no softness. Structure was not philosophy, it was necessity. From scarcity, hierarchy emerges. When the land is harsh, someone must stand higher, not to dominate, but to survive. The divine was no longer everywhere. It was elevated, removed from the circle, placed beyond reach.
The shape changed. The circle flattened. The triangle emerged. Power now had direction. Authority became embodied. One figure stood above the many. Distance became design.
Stone replaced sand. The structure rose higher, but the geometry remained the same. The symbol evolved. The summit remained. Every era built upward. Glass replaced stone. Steel replaced sand. The peak simply modernized. We renamed it leadership, governance, executive authority. But the elevation remained. Power became data. Data became height. The graph replaced the throne. The architecture told the story. Always upward. Always above.
You know, I can't help but see the symbolism of the phallic representation there. Everything is like projecting itself up. You know, we've got like the Washington Monument. We've got the symbols over in the Vatican. We've got like all these different, you know, monument statues. Yeah, these different pyramids. I mean, it's like everything is a phallic representation. And that phallic representation is this patriarchal version of how everything that is going to be done is always coming from the inside going out to get it. It's like it's always trying to dominate. It's always trying to take, you know. Yeah. So unlike the earlier village ways of seeing the world, where the divine was everywhere, in the trees, the rain, you know, the stuff they call demonic, and the soil, the storm god was outside the world. He was a singular boss who sat at the top of a hierarchy, just like, you know, Pam Bondi was performing for the boss.
Yep.
He wasn't a part of the circle. He was the one who drew the line.
You know, and the finger pointing and that sense of authority and that, you know,
finger
and
pointing, like phallic.
Yeah. It's just so, you know, even the God that those in control created to instill fear is, you know, this authority figure, you know, and it's like, and where is it? Because all these years, there's yet to be a person to ever see this God.
True.
They claim to see it. God came and told me. BS. There's no proof. So because the desert was scarce, the culture became obsessed with what Malone calls external fulfillment. The idea is simple. If you don't have enough inside your borders, you go out and you take it. You raid the next village. You conquer the next territory. Isn't that what the communists do, the colonial people? And yeah.
This conquest mindset is the foundation of the system. The storm god became the ultimate lead auditor who justified the raid. He said, "You are my chosen people, and that resource over there, Jericho, belongs to you."
Fast forward 10,000 years, and we're still doing it. Our corporations don't just exist, they expand, they capture markets, they mine data. We are still living by the logic of the desert raid. We're still seeking our fulfillment outside of ourselves, well, because we've forgotten how to find it in the village. Oh, and the stock market has reached such and such. Oh, it fell down again today. So that is like...
Well, the crazy thing is that, 10% of people of, 93% of the world's richest people are able to even invest in the stock market.
But it's all numbers.
You're not talking about people.
It's numbers in a computer. It don't exist. It's lies.
Once you have a god at the top of a pyramid, your society starts to look like a pyramid too. Mm-hmm. This is where the system and the patriarchy became the same thing. It all goes back to that pile of grain. If a man goes out, raids a neighboring tribe, or harvests a massive surplus, he wants to make sure that wealth stays in his specific family line. He needs to own the children.
Oh. To own the children, you have to control the mothers. This is why the system became obsessed with purity culture. It wasn't about being a good person. It was a security protocol. It was a way to make sure the inheritance, the grains, the gold, the assets stayed within the lead auditor.
Think about the language we still use today. You're going to fill out your tax forms. Heads of household. Oh, founding fathers. Sound familiar? Succession planning. We're still living in the storm god's hierarchy. We've been told that purity is a moral thing. But in the system, it's just a way to stabilize the market.
And let's talk about purity because, they claim to be all pure and whatever, but those that are in the faith, that are leaders and pastors and conservatives,
impure people,
they're the ones caught with their pants down all the time. So what did we lose when we traded the village for the storm god? Well, we lost what Malone calls the communion pulse. Community.
In the village, security came from connection. You were safe because you were part of a group that cared about you. But in the storm god system, the one we live in today, security comes from dominance.
Yep.
You're only safe if you're at the top of the pile. You're only safe if you have more tokens than the person next to you.
And this is why we're so stressed. Our bodies are still wired for the village, but we're living in a system designed for the raid. We're constantly redlining our nervous system. God, I know that with my watch, it's always like, looking for enemies when we should be looking for neighbors. You should all get one of these Garmins, and I tell you, it's like, whoa, my stress level, my body battery only went up. Oh my goodness, yeah.
And the people at the very top, well, they're actually the loneliest of all. They have the most tokens, Elon. They have the most tokens, but they've completely disconnected from the heartbeat. They've excommunicated themselves from the human race just to stay at the top of the pyramid.
And the names that we haven't even heard of because they like to stay under the radar.
Oh, yeah.
This is the darkest part of the blueprint. Malone argues that things like the Epstein scandal or the way we see billionaires act in today's, they're not glitches. They're not glitches in the system at all. They are the inevitable result of it.
When you spend 10,000 years telling people that power is good and connection is weak, you eventually end up with a class of people who have zero human empathy left, i.e. Donald Trump.
Yep.
They sit, i.e. Pam Bondi,
Steve, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally cut off from the village. They sit on their private islands.
Yeah. Because they are so lonely and so disconnected. They are also deeply afraid. They try to fill that void with the only thing the system taught them: dominance, pointing fingers, getting all angry. They consume the most vulnerable, the youth, the pure assets, because it's the only way they can feel like a storm god for a few minutes.
It's called filial cannibalism. You might see it and you open up your Bible to Book of Numbers. Society that eats its own future because it's too afraid to live in the present. Purity culture, the system created, is actually exactly what these predators use to find their targets.
Actually, I was going to see, there's actually, yeah. Leviticus 26:29, you will eat the flesh of your own sons and daughters. This is part of the list of escalating punishment and turning away from God. Deuteronomy 28:53 through 57. This passage provides the most graphic detail describing how the most gentle and sensitive parents would hide from their own family to secretly eat their newborn babies in the afterbirth during a military siege. Jeremiah 19:9, I will make them eat the flesh of their sons and daughters because their enemies will press the siege so hard. Ezekiel 5:10, therefore in your midst, fathers will eat their children and children will eat their fathers. This is your God, Yahweh.
Cannibal.
Cannibal.
It's a closed, horrific loop that starts in the desert and ends in a high-rise penthouse.
If the problem started with a storm god in the desert, the solution starts with finding the village in your own backyard.
Malone says she's done listening to the men in power. She's done centering the storm god logic. She's moving back to the matriarchal roots, not where women rule over men, but where the village rules over the individual.
We have to stop looking up for salvation. The storm god isn't coming to save us. I wrote a song, No One's Coming to Save Us, in my Enslaved album, because the storm god is the system. We are the ones who have to save each other. If I've always said before, we are the ones we have been waiting for.
We have to start looking across. We have to start seeing the person next to us, not as a competitor for the grain, but as a member of the damn circle.
You know, and how relaxing that would be if we never had to worry about running out of food, worrying about bills. If we all lived to help one another, can you imagine our central nervous system, how relaxed it would be, that we didn't have to worry about turning on the television and hearing the craziness this idiot that's running the White House right now is doing? I mean, it's just, we've seen the blueprint, the storm god logic that tells us someone has to be in charge of the pile. But how did they actually get us to accept it? How do you take a world that used to be a shared garden and turn it into a series of locked boxes? He kicked us out of the garden.
Yeah.
I mean, that right there.
It didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't even a request. It was an eviction. He kicked us out of the garden.
Yeah.
We have to talk about something called the enclosure. If you want to understand why you feel like a worker instead of a neighbor, you have to look at what happened in Europe between the 15th and 18th centuries.
This is where we bring in our first witness, Silvia Federici. She's the one who dug through the old records and found the blood on the ledger. Before this era, most people lived on common land. You didn't own the forest, but you could gather wood there. You didn't own the field, but you could graze your cow there. The land was the village's life support.
Then came the fences, the wealthy and the powerful. The lead auditors of that era realized they could make more money by raising sheep for the global wool trade than by letting peasants live for free. So they literally fenced off the commons. They told the people, this land is now private property. If you want to eat, you have to leave or you have to work for us.
We saw a movie that Kevin Costner was in, whatever, that we didn't like it. And you saw that
the flop of a Western that he did.
Yeah, and then, they were just creating these fences, and the indigenous people were like, well, what are they doing? And that's what they've done from the beginning of time. This was the birth of the captive asset. When you take away someone's ability to feed themselves for free, which is what
We are.
Yeah. You create a very specific kind of person, a domesticated animal, practically, a person who has to sell their time just to survive. You're trading your time for dollars, right? The system didn't just want the land, it wanted labor.
Federici points out that this was a violent transition. People didn't want to go work in dark, dangerous factories for pennies. They fought back. They rioted. They tried to go back to their gardens. So the system had to criminalize being a neighbor. They passed laws against vagrancy, which basically meant it was illegal to be poor and not working for a boss.
And today, I mean, if you are a banner, that's one of the reasons we stopped, because we saw like this could really become incriminating, you know? This is the militarization of the mercy we talked about earlier. The storm god moved from the desert into the English countryside. He brought a clipboard and a noose. He told the village, the heartbeat is over. The ledger is now the law.
But the fences weren't just made of wood. Federici found that the system had to fence in something even more important, the female body. They're doing it now.
Yep.
This is the real story behind the great, quote unquote, witch hunts.
Most of us are taught that the witch hunts were just about religious crazies. But Federici found that the people being targeted were almost always the wise women of the village, the midwives, the herbalists, the ones who knew how to handle birth and, more importantly, how to prevent them.
And why would the system care about that? Because if you're building a world based on surplus, you need a constant supply of new workers. The state needed a biological surplus. They needed to turn women's bodies into factories for producing more assets.
And they wanted to control women's bodies. And that's why the whole concept of abortion is and all that stuff. The wise woman was a threat because she kept the village's secret. She helped women maintain their own autonomy outside of the state's ledger. So the system turned her into, guess what? A witch. They replaced her with a male doctor who was loyal to the storm god's hierarchy. They took the birth process out of the village circle and put it into the clinical gaze. We saw, what was that series, The Outlander, where, you know, when she went back in time, she played the role of the midwife and herbalist, and they accused of being a witch. I mean, it's crazy.
Once the land was fenced and the women were controlled, the system did one more thing. It invented, and yes, you may be offended, but this is it, the nuclear family. This is what Casey Malone calls the firewall.
And in the old village, raising a child was a communal project. You didn't have to be a perfect parent because you had 20 other people helping you. But the system realized that if they could shrink the village down into a tiny isolated box, they can make you more dependent.
The nuclear family is the ultimate isolation ward. It forces two people to do the work of 20. And young parents out there, it makes you exhausted. It makes you stress. And most importantly, it makes you buy stuff. You can't share a lawnmower or a kitchen with the whole village anymore. You have to buy your own. You have to work more hours to pay for the independence that is actually just loneliness.
This is the individualist virus in action. By breaking the village into tiny pieces, the system ensured that we never have enough time or energy to stand together against the lead auditors. We're too busy trying to keep our own little island from sinking. I mean, seriously, folks, think of your life and yourself and your neighbors and how you barely have any time to sit down and have a conversation with your wife, with your children. It's work, work, work. Take the kids to play Little League and do this and do that. It's like, I don't even know. I don't know how people do it.
Now we bring in our next witness, Michel Foucault, who looked at how the system moves from the fence to the mind. He called it the clinical gaze.
Foucault noticed that the system stopped needing to hang people in the streets to make them behave, which is pretty harsh kind of thing to have done. Instead, they built institutions, the schools, hospitals, prisons, offices that all look and act the same. They're designed to make you feel like you are always being watched and, yes, judged.
Think about if your worker Your performance review. Think about your credit score. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Think about your likes on social media. This is the modern version of the storm god watching from above. You start to police yourself. You start to worry if you're productive enough, pure enough, or normal enough.
And let's not forget during Christmas, he sees you when you're sleeping. You know, we've internalized the auditor. We don't need a fence in the dirt anymore because we've built a fence in our own heads. We've been trained to view ourselves as assets, to be optimized rather than neighbors to be loved. We've traded our communion pulse for a compliance score. What is that guy, Rogers? It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Yeah. This brings us back.
Yeah, this brings us back to what Malone calls the scarcity of the storm god. The system has to keep us feeling like there isn't enough to go around. If we felt like there was abundance, we'd stop competing. We stop working 8 hours a week.
So the system manufactures scarcity. It tells us that security is something you have to earn rather than something you're born into. It tells us that the person in the next box is trying to take your grain. Those illegals are trying to take away black jobs.
Your jobs that you would never work at.
It turns the world into a zero-sum game.
That's always us against them. It's that competing, that enemy, that division. And for the people at the top, the ones who have billions of tokens, the scarcity mindset becomes a literal sickness because they've disconnected from the village. They can never feel safe. No matter how many fences they build or how many people they dominate, they still feel that ancient desert hunger. They are the storm gods who have everything and yet are starving for connection.
But here's the thing. You can't fence a heartbeat forever. Federici, Malone, and Foucault all show us that the village didn't fail. It was suppressed. The desire to connect, to share, and to protect each other is still the hardware of our species.
The reversal starts when we recognize the fence for what it is. It's not progress. It's not freedom. It's just an audit. And we can choose to stop participating in the audit at any time.
We start by de-enclosing our lives. We start by sharing tools, the meals, and the childcare that the system wants us to pay for. Every time we act like a neighbor instead of a worker, we are reclaiming the dirt. We're breaking the storm god's blueprint.
And now we have vignette number 3.
When there isn't enough inside your borders, you take, you justify it, and you call it survival. Survival became expansion. Expansion became empire. Empire became extraction. And extraction never asked permission. We stripped forests. We gutted mountains. We burned what we found and called it progress. The hunger industrialized. The taking scaled. The appetite professionalized. Extraction became financial. Violence became contractual. And suffering became a line item.
The system refined itself. It no longer needed swords. It needed quarterly returns.
The raid moved inside us. The battlefield became attention. And we began extracting from ourselves. What began as survival hardened into craving. What began as necessity metastasized into addiction. The extraction never stopped. It only changed targets. Land, labor, now, consciousness. The gap widened. The appetite didn't slow. It scaled. We told ourselves it was growth. We told ourselves it was freedom. We never admitted it was compulsion.
External fulfillment was never about enough. It was about more, and more has no ceiling.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff. We're going to do our song there.
Oh,
Or 30 minutes. Time flies when you're having fun. I usually like to put in a song every 30 minutes. It's kind of hard because I've gone through all the songs that I've written, so now I'm forced
you have to write more.
more. But I've written a few more. So here's one I wrote way back when. It's called Alone. And that's actually pretty much matches how the loneliness that people feel
Yeah.
in the world today. Here we go.
Listen, little man, I know it's been so hard to deal, living in this world of ours that doesn't seem as real. Is anybody listening? Is anybody there? Can someone help me see this? I'm tired and I am scared, alone, 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 alone. I've traveled on this road, it seems like miles and miles. I walk no more, no more. I started out one afternoon, I packed up all my things. I had a vision in my heart, along with a few dreams. Is anybody listening? Is anybody there? Can someone help me see this? I'm tired and I am scared, alone, alone, alone. I've traveled on this road, it seems like miles and miles. I've walked no more, no more. Yeah. Along the path I saw some things that opened up my eyes. I met some people along the way I'm glad I left behind. Is anybody listening? Is anybody there? Can someone help me see this? I'm tired and I am scared. I've traveled on this road, it seems like miles and miles. I've walked no more, no more.
Cool song.
Alone. It's a lot of people, even though we feel we have all this social media and stuff, I think a lot of people do feel mostly alone because you can't really relate with people. You can't really trust people, and it's all been designed.
I
how the way
mean,
it
yeah,
is.
honestly, how many of us actually know our neighbor?
Yeah.
I mean, we know that our neighbor is there
Yeah.
and we know a little bit. We've never been in her house.
No.
We don't really, I can't even tell you, what's her name?
Jessica. And the reason
I
I
forget
remember is because
I forget her name.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's like,
I forgot his name.
it's so crazy because a community needs each other.
Yeah.
And it's a lesson that we're still having to learn.
But the way the system's set up, the way the God of this world is set up, the Yahweh, it's like it creates these people that are arrogant that think they're better than everybody else because they're Christians and they're the chosen ones. Or you've got the ones across the pond that they're the chosen ones, so they're going to take land and they're going to destroy everything else. I mean, Think about that mentality. It's crazy. So we've seen the physical fences, right? We've seen how they took the land and boxed in our families. But there's a deeper fence, one that lives in the way we talk, the way we think, and the way we value each other. It's the fence made of numbers. It's the ledger.
You know, most of us are taught that money was invented because bartering was too hard. We're told the story that if I had a cow and you had a bag of wheat, and it was just easier to use a coin, but our next witness, David Graeber, found out that the story that they've been telling you is a complete lie. It's a myth. It's a fairy tale the system tells to really hide its origins.
So Graeber was a forensic investigator of human history. He found that for thousands of years, villages didn't use coins. They used human economies. If you needed a pair of shoes, the cobbler gave them to you because you were a neighbor. He knew that later, when he needed help fixing his roof, you'd be there. It wasn't a transaction, it was a relationship.
The ledger only appeared when the storm god needed to fund a war. Graeber found that money didn't start with trade, as they say. It started with debt. The state would give coins to its soldiers, and I think a denarius is a soldier's daily wage. Then demand that every citizen pay a tax in those same coins. Suddenly, to stay out of prison, you had to sell your goods to the soldiers who had the coins. You were forced into a market by the threat of violence.
And that's how you know that the Jesus they invented, not to say Jesus wasn't real, but the Jesus that the Romans invented, give to Caesar what's owed to Caesar. You know, it's so like you could tell that it's just an invention of the government that created.
I mean, it wasn't Jesus saying, pay your taxes, you know, be obedient to your government if it's trying to like rip you off. It literally said, he was saying, you know, that coinage that the emperor has his face plastered on, that's what's his. That's it. Yeah. My kingdom, it doesn't belong on a coin. It's not of this world. It's not monetary. It's not physical. It's eternal.
And that's why he hung out with the poor, with, you know, he didn't value money because money is something of this world. It's a creation of man. It's a creation to dominate you. So once the ledger was in place, the way we saw each other changed. In a village, you are a person with a history. You are a neighbor. You're a human being. You're valued. In a ledger, you are a credit score. You are a debtor or a creditor. You are given a social security number, right? As soon as you put a mathematical value on a human connection, guess what? The connection dies.
And this is what happens to our souls in the modern world. We've been trained to be transactional. We ask ourselves, what am I getting out of this relationship? Is this a good use of my time? We're auditing our friends and family like we're balancing a spreadsheet.
This is the individualist virus reaching its peak. When everything is a transaction, you don't need a village. You just need a bank account. And the system loves that because you can't control a group of people who love and trust each other for free. But you can definitely control 1 million individuals who all owe you money.
And that's the interesting thing about it is that here we have people in a community like Minnesota where ICE was just running rampant, doing all kinds of stuff. And they're coming together. And in their coming together as a community family, they're being accused of being this organized, political, because the people in power, they can't conceive that people would want to work together.
No, they can't.
Think about the word value. In the village, something was valuable if it served the people. A forest was valuable because it gave shade and fuel. A child was valuable because they were the future of the circle.
But in the storm god's ledger, something is only valuable if it can be sold. If a forest is just standing there, it has a value of 0 on the spreadsheet. You have to cut it down and turn it into lumber before the lead auditor recognizes it as an asset.
This is the external fulfillment protocol that we saw in segment 1. And going back to that whole giving value, Christians, look in numbers, ledger. It's a book of accounting.
Yeah.
It's a book of giving value to a particular human.
Yeah.
Like you had a woman worth this many shekels of silver versus a child or versus a man. That's what it is. I mean,
that's all that Yahweh God was all about: land and building things and taking stuff. And yeah,
the system can only feel full if it is extracting value from the world and putting it into the ledger. It's why we're seeing what Donald Trump's doing with the EPA right now and just destroying our environment in the future here and not too soon. I mean, it's crazy. We're turning a living village, the earth itself, into a dead surplus by mining it to pay off an imaginary debt.
Yeah. So we mentioned how the storm god speaks through our modern business language, but let's look at how that language actually controls your day. We talk about human resources. Think about that term. You aren't a person at work, you are a resource. Human resources. Is that not what they call those people that run the office? Human resource. That's where you go whenever you like coal or oil to be used up until you're empty. I just, that human resources.
Yeah, resource. You're a resource. You're human. And
when you're in trouble and you have to report the human resource because something or another, or they're the ones that literally run the ship in the company, when they're the ones that hire you, fire you, and all that crap. Yeah.
You're an asset. Like, you know, they order coal, they order oil, so they order more of you.
Yeah.
We talk about investing in our children, right? We talk about emotional labor. We've taken the most beautiful human parts of our lives and forced them into the language of the raid. It's a form of linguistic enclosure. They've fenced in our very ability to describe a world without the ledger.
So Casey Malone points out that this language is designed to keep us in a state of scarcity panic. If you view your life as a portfolio, you're always worried about a market crash. You're always looking for a risk to manage, risk management. That's another thing in a company. You never have enough capital, whether it's money, beauty, or status, to finally just sit down and be a neighbor. You know, you're always seeking like, oh, my wrinkles, I got to get some Botox. Oh, I got to get this kind of makeup. Oh, I got to get this, that, and the. It's constantly never ending. This brings us back to the darker accounts we've been discussing. Well, why do people at the top of the system feel entitled to do what they do? Well, because in their eyes, everyone else is just data.
When you live entirely within the ledger, people stop being human and start being inventory. If you're the lead auditor and you have enough tokens, you start to believe that everything and everyone is for sale. That's Donald Trump in a nutshell.
Yeah.
The Epstein files aren't a story about monsters. Instead, they're a story about what happens when the logic of the transaction is allowed to go to its final horrific conclusion.
It's the ultimate raid. The storm god's chosen few sitting at the top of the pyramid. It's even in the back of the dollar bill. You got a pyramid with the all-seeing eye, looking down at the rest of us as resources to be acquired. They aren't part of our village. They don't recognize our heartbeat. They only recognize the ledger. And in their ledger, the most pure assets are the ones with the highest dominance value.
So how do we break the spell of the ledger? How do we stop being assets and start being neighbors again?
We have to start engaging in off-ledger acts. Every time you do something for someone else and refuse to keep score, you're committing an act of rebellion. Every time you share a tool or cook a meal for a sick neighbor or watch someone's kid for free, you're reclaiming a piece of that human economy.
David Graeber calls this everyday communism. Not the scary state kind, don't worry, but the simple human kind. It's the baseline of how we actually want to live. It's the realization that we don't owe the system anything. Our only real debt is to each other. And that's a debt that's paid in kindness, not coins.
We have to stop ordering our lives. We have to stop checking the performance review of our souls. The storm god wants you to be a number. The village wants you to be a name.
And we have a next vignette.
Vignette number 4.
Control no longer wears a crown. It wears a badge. It carries a laptop. It lives in architecture.
You enter willingly. You badge in voluntarily. The gate does not force you. It simply records you. Your shelter ties to income. Your healthcare ties to employment. Your stability ties to compliance. This is not accidental. Credit replaces trust. Score replaces reputation. Numbers replace character. And the system calls it merit. Dependency scales in small increments. $10, $15, auto-renew. Compliance is rewarded. Performance is measured. Advancement is vertical, and the climb never ends. Uniformity feels safe. Predictability feels stable. Structure feels secure. The grid feels like order. Metrics replace meaning. Targets replace purpose. Output replaces identity. And numbers decide value. Distraction becomes relief. Relief becomes habit. Habit becomes sedation. Sedation becomes loyalty. Freedom inside the system is movement within boundaries. The cage does not close. It surrounds. The architecture does not threaten you. It rewards you. It comforts you. And it keeps you exactly where you are. Control no longer needs chains. It builds incentives. It engineers dependence, and it calls it freedom.
We've talked about the fences and the money, but now we have to talk about the most successful trick the system ever pulled. They took the word freedom and they swapped it with the word independence. And most of us never noticed the bait and switch.
In the village, freedom meant having a place where you belonged. It meant having people who had your back, so you were free to be yourself without the fear of starving. But the system redefined freedom as being alone. They told us that the ultimate goal in life is to be self-sufficient. My dad used to say that. He used to say, you need to be able to have your own things, to be able to support your own life and, to be self-sufficient, to have your own car.
And coming from a place like Puerto Rico, that wasn't the case because
it was
community.
Your own car, your own house, your own insurance. What a joke, right?
I know.
And your own 4 walls.
Which we can barely afford anymore because the prices keep going up and up. Think about how we talked about growing up. We tell kids that the goal...
No, growing up.
Yeah.
That's a play on words.
Yeah. We tell kids that the goal is to leave the nest and stand on their own 2 feet. We treat needing help as a sign of weakness or a failure of character. Some parents are eager to kick their kids out of the house, This is what we call the individualist virus. It's a psychological fence that keeps us from reaching out to the person living 6 feet away. The whole concept, I could do this alone. I don't need anybody. I'm just, and that's BS.
Casey Malone points out that this virus is what makes us safe assets for the system itself. An independent person is a person who has to buy everything they use to get for free.
Mm-hmm.
If you're independent, you don't have a village to fix your car.
No.
You have a mechanic you have to pay. That's supposedly better. You don't have a village to watch your kids. You got to take them to daycare and you got to pay for it. Loneliness is the most profitable product the system has ever sold.
And talking about mechanics, I had a cousin, or I have a cousin still alive, who's a mechanic, but they've changed everything around to digital. So even the old mechanics, they could fix anything. They were so good at it. That's even gone. To keep the virus running, the system needed a way to keep us connected without actually letting us be together. This is where Michael Foucault's panopticon goes digital. He describes a prison where the guard sits in a tower and the prisoners are in cells around him. They can't see the guard, so they assume they're always being watched.
Today, that tower is the algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
We carry it in our pockets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have been trained to post our lives, to brand ourselves, and to perform our best selves for a crowd of strangers.
Yeah.
We're seeking the communion pulse of the village, but we're looking for it in a like button.
Because they know that it's inside of us, right? It's that urging need that we're constantly like looking for that familiar, looking for that connection, whether it's be a person or a tribe. And we haven't found it. That's why we're always depressed and always seeking, always buying, and there's always more and more because we're not getting fulfilled. And because we're performing for the gaze, we're always auditing ourselves. And I wanted to say for those Christians that think, well, you need Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, that's BS. Been there, done that. Did nothing for me. Am I successful enough? Am I pretty enough? Is my life on brand? We've turned our own identities into assets that we have to manage. Let me tell you, it's exhausting. It's the storm god's judgment, but we've put it in our own hands.
I remember growing up, elementary school, kids were, went to private Christian school, and they were pretty well to do. Some of these kids, they lived on the beach, they had rich parents, and they got the nice clothes. They wore the Izod, they wore the polo, they wore the topsider. Sperry wasn't Tom McCann, it wasn't, J.C. Penney. Kids that didn't have that kind of money to spend. Even back then, it was like $40 a shirt. You would like buy the Tiger brand. Remember that? They had the Fox brand.
Well, I only got Kmart specials. Yeah, I didn't care.
So when I walked in one day with Tom McCann fake topsiders, oh my God, I got it, because kids were self-policing behavior. Yeah. They didn't need anyone. They were being their own police.
Well, their
and they
parents
were like
taught them
shaming
that.
you.
Their parents taught them
They
that.
were like, those aren't the real McCoy. And I was like, they look like yours. I mean, you walk in them, I walk in mine, so. The system loves social media because it keeps us in a state of social scarcity. We see everyone's highlight reel. We feel like our own pile of grain isn't big enough. Keeps us competing, keeps us consuming, and most importantly, keeps us from actually talking to our neighbors about how lonely we all are.
Yeah.
And we have vignette 5.
Here we go.
The system does not survive on force alone. It survives on belief, on fear, on identification. We defend it in conversations.
We defend it in elections.
We defend it because we fear what replaces it. We defend it because our homes sit inside it. Our debt binds to it. Our security depends on it. To question it feels like risking everything. We defend it because we earned our place, because we climbed, because we sacrificed, because admitting the structure is flawed feels like invalidating our effort. We defend it because instability terrifies us. Collapse threatens comfort. Uncertainty threatens identity. Fear protects the architecture. So we argue on its behalf. We rationalize its flaws. We defend its efficiency, even when it extracts from us. Because if the system is wrong, what does that make us? Complicit? Beneficiaries? Victims? Identity fuses with structure. Patriotism fuses with policy. Loyalty fuses with architecture. And questioning becomes betrayal. Debt anchors us. Time binds us. Responsibility roots us. And roots resist movement. Rebellion risks livelihood. Resistance risks reputation. Dissent risks belonging. So we choose stability. We defend the cage because we built our lives inside it. We decorate it. We ensure it. We justify it. The system does not need chains. It needs belief. And belief is stronger than steel.
And we think that we left the plantation, but the plantation continues to exist. All they've done is they've removed the chains, but the chains are still around us, invisible bars. We have to go back to the nuclear family just for a second. We've been told it's the building block of society, but Malone is very clear. The nuclear family is actually a firewall designed to protect the system, not the family.
By shrinking our world down to a tiny two-parent silo, the system ensures that we're always in survival mode. If one parent gets sick or loses a job, the whole island sinks. This keeps us terrified. And a terrified person is an obedient person. You won't stand up to your boss or the lead auditor if you're the only thing standing between your family and the street.
And imagine today people live paycheck to paycheck. And how many people receive the pink slip? And if that happens and you're living paycheck to paycheck, how are you going to survive?
Imagine what's happening with the people who are undocumented or people that are being taken advantage of by these corporations who are like, you know, I won't say anything, but you need to work for less now.
Yeah, or work harder for the same price. The village used to be the safety net, but the system replaced the net with insurance. They took the communal responsibility and turned it into a monthly bill. They want you to believe that your neighbor is a threat to your resources. As you mentioned, those that are undocumented, they are a threat to your resources, rather than the person who could help you survive without the system. This isolation is exactly what allows the Epstein results to flourish. Predators don't just happen. They are enabled by the silence that the individualist virus creates.
In a village, everyone knows everyone. There are no private islands. If a child is in trouble or if a person is acting strangely, the community sees it. But in a world of independent, boxes and private lives, harm can stay hidden for decades or multiple decades in the case of Epstein. The system's obsession with privacy is often just a cover for the lead auditors to do whatever they want with their assets. They don't look at us as humans behind closed doors.
The individualist virus tells us it's none of your business. It tells us to mind our own house. But while we're minding our own houses, the village is being dismantled. The children are being left vulnerable because the village that was supposed to protect them has been replaced by a security system that only watches for theft, not for harm.
So how do we delete the virus? How do we get unsynced from the system and resynced with each other?
It starts with admitting the truth. We are not independent. We are deeply biologically dependent on each other. And that's a good thing. Malone talks about shedding the programming. That means stopping the performance. It means being real with your neighbors about your struggles.
The reversal is as simple as asking for help. When you ask a neighbor for a cup of sugar, even if you could buy it at the store, you're creating a human economy. You're inviting them into your village. You're telling them, and the system actually, I don't need your ledger today.
We have to break the privacy spell. We have to start seeing our nuclear silos as part of the larger whole. The system wants you to be a self-made man or woman because a self-made person has no one to stand with them when the storm god comes for the raid. Vignette number 6.
Sometimes the cost is immediate.
No.
They let me go.
What do you mean? Resolve is tested in private.
This is insubordination. I understand. We've got you.
Support interrupts isolation. Mutual aid reduces panic.
Who can cover Thursday?
I can handle mornings. Structure replaces dependence.
Surveillance loses leverage. The second yes is harder. Commitment compounds.
I thought you'd forgotten.
We're still in. It does not need to be large. They hold.
We've actually forgotten that kind of humanity. And that's exactly what the system has wanted us to do.
Yeah.
You know,
Has us pitted against each other.
yeah, it's like, I don't know you guys, but it's like you look at somebody in the street or whatever, and it's like, it's not that friendly look. And we live in a place that's actually pretty friendly. I must say that. But if you live in a city, it's a dog world out there,
is.
you know? We have followed the blueprint from the first grain of wheat in the desert to the digital high-rise of today. We've seen the fences, we felt the isolation, and we've looked into the dark corners where the lead auditors keep their secrets. Now we have to perform the final audit. We have to look at the bill the storm god has handed us.
The cost isn't just in our bank accounts. It's in our bodies. It's in the scarcity panic that keeps us from sleeping. It's in the individualist virus that tells us we're alone, even when we're in a crowded room. The system has spent 10,000 years trying to convince us that we are assets to be mined rather than life to be lived.
And on that note, I got another little nice song that I wrote recently, Beyond the Mountains. It's very spiritual, and I don't know, it's just a song that I think that will bring you joy. Enjoy.
Beyond the mountains, beyond the sky, I saw the truth I couldn't deny. Then came the voice, a gentle guide that touched my life and opened my eyes wide. I shed my fears, my doubts, my pride. I stepped into the light I could not hide. We rise together, hand in hand. Beyond the mountains, make a stand. The light within our guiding star. The solutions are, no matter how we are the children, we are the light, breaking the chains of endless night. Open the gates now, let your spirit soar. Tear down the ego and you'll discover more. A world of love forevermore. Step into the light and cross the floor. We rise together, hand in hand. Beyond the mountains, make a stand. The light within our guiding star. The solutions are, no matter how far we've wandered, lost in shadows deep. Held captive by the lies we keep. But now to build a world anew. We rise together, hand in hand, beyond the mountains, make us stand. The light within our guiding star, the solutions ours. No matter how far, no matter how far. Beyond the mountain, we make a stand. The solutions ours, in our hands.
And the solutions are definitely in our hands. Guys, if you're enjoying the program, please make sure to subscribe, share, hit that notification button. If you're able, there's many ways that you can donate. The descriptions are down below, either PayPal or become a Patreon. It could be a one-time donation, however you feel you're capable of. So Casey Malone says she's done. Literally, she's done. She's done listening to the opinions of the people in power. She's done censoring the logic of the raid. And the doneness is the beginning of the exodus. And you should be done too. It's the moment you realize that the storm god doesn't have any power over you if you refuse to believe in the desert. So how do we leave the system without moving to a desert island or deserted island? We built the silent village. We built the world we want to live in, right in the middle of the world they built for us.
The silent village doesn't have a fence, and it doesn't have a ledger. It's what David Graeber called everyday communism. It's a network of people who decide that their neighbors' children are just as important as their own. It's the people who share their tools, their food, and their time without keeping score.
This is the ultimate off-ledger move. The system can't audit a favor. It can't tax a hug. It can't manage a community that takes care of its own. When you build a village, you are de-enclosing your life. You are taking your survival out of the boss's hands and putting it back into the hands of the people who actually know your name.
This is what it means to shed the programming. It means looking at your nuclear silo and realizing it has a door. You can walk out. You can invite people in. You could decide that privacy isn't worth the price of loneliness. And the last vignette.
I think it's vignette 6.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sometimes the cost is immediate.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the final vignette.
For generations, the engine has been running. Steel and signal, policy and profit, momentum layered on momentum. It does not roar, it hums. It does not demand devotion, it manufactures necessity. We inherited its rhythm. We learned its language. We mistook its scale for permanence. And slowly, what surrounded us began to define us. The pace, the pressure, the quiet fear of falling behind. But permanence is an illusion. No structure is sacred. No architecture is eternal. No system is total. The moment we see it clearly, it changes. The moment participation becomes intentional, momentum shifts.
These were picked fresh.
Resilience
They
is
look
not
wonderful. I'll
rebellion.
take a bunch.
It is
A little
capacity.
care helps them thrive
It is
up here.
skill
Keep the angle
learned.
steady for a clean
Debt
cut.
reduced.
This side is ready for the
Hands
next step.
re-engaged. Relationships strengthened. It is the widening of options. And when options expand, control contracts. Power depends on inevitability, on the belief that there is no outside, no alternative, no beyond. Remove inevitability, and power becomes conditional. The engine will continue, cities will glow, Markets will move. Institutions will endure. But they will no longer define the horizon. Because we are larger than the structures we inherit, larger than the systems we participate in, larger than the architecture that surrounds us. Hope is not collapse. Hope is evolution. And evolution begins when we outgrow what once contained us. You were not meant to live alone.
We have to talk about the most radical part of the reversal, centering the children. In the storm god system, children are treated like inheritance assets or private property. They are hidden behind the family's firewall, which makes them vulnerable to the Epstein result.
In the village, the child is the center of the circle. Not just your child, but the child. When we decide that every child in our neighborhood is our collective responsibility, we create a level of security that no home security system could ever provide. We create a web of eyes and hearts that predators simply cannot penetrate.
This is the matriarchal shift Malone is calling for. It's not about who's in charge, it's about what we're protecting. When we center the vulnerable, the lead auditors lose their dominance value. You can't perform a raid on a village that is standing shoulder to shoulder around its future, just like Minneapolis. They all stood up against these ICE agents.
They did.
And they withstood being sprayed, hit, imprisoned, and everything else, but they stood up against it. Unfortunately, 2 wonderful human beings died. But that only gave us more strength and more resolve. The exodus isn't a physical journey. It's a psychological one. It's the moment you stop asking the system for permission to be human. It's the moment you realize that the storm god is just a voice in your head and that the ledger is just a piece of paper.
It starts today. It starts when you tend your garden, whether that's a literal plot of dirt or the garden of your relationships. It starts when you refuse to be a resource and insist on being a neighbor. It starts when you decide that the communion pulse is more important than the compliance score.
The system will tell you that you're unsynced. It will tell you that you are at risk. But the real risk is staying in the box until your heartbeat fades away. The real risk is living a life that is optimized but never loved.
Casey Malone's rage isn't just anger. It's the fire that clears the field so the village can grow back. The Epstein files, the storm god, the ledger, they are the dying gasps of a system that forgot what it means to be human.
But you haven't forgotten. You can feel the communion pulse right now. It's that little tug in your chest when you see someone in need. It's that sense of peace when you're part of a circle. That is the hardware. That is the reality.
The audit is finished. The debt is canceled. The fences are down.
Turn off the radio. Walk outside. Find your neighbors.
The village is open.
We've talked about the land and the money, but let's talk about the house you actually live in, your body. In the village, your body was part of the earth. When you were tired, you slept. When you were hungry, the village fed you. But the storm god can't audit a body that listens to itself.
This is what Michael Foucault calls biopower. The system realized that to truly own the surplus, they had to own the machine that makes it. They had to turn your health into a compliance score. They took the body away from the village and put it into the clinic.
Think about how we treat being sick today. In a village, being sick was a communal event. Neighbors brought you soup, they sat with you. Today, being sick is a medical event. It's a private problem that you have to solve with a credit card and a specialist. The system has fenced off our very ability to heal each other. It's in our nature, that curative, that nurturing.
Yeah.
If you learn how to tap into that, you don't have to be a doctor to be able to bring that out in you.
And this is where we go back to Sylvia Federici's research on witch hunts. The biggest asset the storm god needs is new life. For 300,000 years, birth happened in the circle of women. It was a communion pulse.
Mm-hmm.
But the lead auditors couldn't have that. They couldn't have a new human enter the world without it being recorded on the ledger.
So they attacked the midwives. They called them witches because they held the keys to birth and death outside of the state's control. They replaced the communal wisdom of women with the clinical gaze of the male doctor. They turned birth, the most village-centered event there is, into a managed industrial process. I mean, think about it. They put you in the stirrup, in this cold room, the doctor's, yeah, it's not natural.
Yeah, this is describing it. When you're born in a hospital under bright LED lights and connected to dozen monitors, you aren't being welcomed into a village. You're being processed into the ledger. From your first breath, you're a data point. The storm god has claimed the womb as a state-regulated factory.
But the storm god didn't stop at the skin. He wanted the mind. If you feel unsynced from the system, if you're sad because you're lonely or anxious because you're isolated, the system doesn't say, hey, let's build you a village. It says, your brain is broken. Here's a pill.
It's a brilliant move. Instead of fixing the individual's virus that causes the stress, the system medicalizes the stress. It tells you that your unhappiness is a chemical imbalance that you have to fix privately. It keeps the audit going. It keeps you focused on your own deficiency instead of looking up at the fences the storm god put up around you.
We've been trained to view our own moods as market fluctuations. We've managed our anxiety like we manage a stock portfolio. We are performing an internal raid on our own peace just to stay productive for the lead auditor. And here is where the purity culture and the Epstein result meets the clinic. When the body is just an asset, the most valuable assets are the unprocessed ones, the children.
The storm god's obsession with purity isn't about protection. It's about market value. In a world where everybody's audited, a body that hasn't been used is the ultimate luxury for the lead auditor. The system's clinical view of the body as a thing to be used and discarded is exactly what creates the mindset of the predator.
If the body is just a machine, then the lead auditor thinks he can buy any machine he wants if he has enough tokens. The Epstein files are the medical records of a society that has completely forgotten that a body is a person, not a resource.
So how do we take our bodies back? How do we de-enclose the self? It starts by realizing that your body is not a factory. It's a part of the village. Casey Malone talks about finding that inner grounding. That means listening to the communion pulse inside you, not the compliance score on the screen.
It means reclaiming the wise woman wisdom. It means realizing the health isn't something you buy. And it doesn't mean that it's just for women. Men have that wisdom too. It's something you build with your neighbors. It's that community garden that provides real food. It's that neighbor who sits with you when you're grieving. It's moving from healthcare to community care.
And when we care for each other's bodies for free,
Mm-hmm.
we're performing a biological raid on the system itself. We're telling the storm god Yahweh, you don't own my pulse. My life belongs to the circle, not the ledger.
We've seen the fence around the body. Now look at the fence around the child's mind. We call it education. But if you look at the blueprint, it looks a lot more like an industrial sorting facility.
Foucault saw this clearly. He realized the school was modeled after the factory and the prison. The rows of desks, the bells, the permission to speak, the constant testing. It's all designed to break the village instinct and install the individualist virus before the child is even 10 years old.
In the village, children learned by doing. They learn by being part of the circle. They learn from elders, from each other, and from the land. There were no grades. There was only wisdom. But the storm god can't audit wisdom. He can only audit test scores.
The biggest thing school teaches isn't math or history. It's competition.
Mm-hmm.
It teaches you that your success depends on being better than the person sitting next to you. Think about your SATs or ACTs.
All the time.
It teaches you that the gold star is more important than the helping hand.
And I don't know about you, but every time you had to study for a test, you memorized. You didn't learn anything. You just memorized, and then you forgot whatever you learned. That's the system. That's why education is asinine. It is a storm god's raid mentality being installed in the next generation. We're training children to be independent assets who view their peers as competitors for the surplus. We're training them to be lonely because, as we've seen, the lonelier you are, the more you'll work for the system to buy a sense of belonging and buy things you don't need. We've looked at the fences around our homes and our bodies, but now we have to look at the biggest fence of all, the one the storm god put around the entire planet. Malone talks about how this system is absolutely decimating the natural world. In the noir, we don't call this progress. We call it the final raid.
If you view the world through the storm god's eyes, nothing is sacred unless it's in the ledger. A mountain isn't a landmark or a home for the village. It's just a pile of unextracted coal, just like Trump would want you to believe. A river isn't the lifeblood of a community. It's just unharnessed kilowatt hours. The system has spent 10,000 years turning the mother, the earth, into a resource to be audited and consumed.
This is the ultimate external fulfillment because the storm god can never be full. He must always find a new frontier to raid. First, it was the next valley. Then it was the next continent. Now it's the deep sea and the very atoms of our atmosphere. It's a conquest that doesn't know how to stop until there's nothing left to take, like a virus that just goes on and on and on and eats away at, or bacteria or anything that just eats and eats and eats and has insatiable appetite.
Malone is very direct about this, though. The global raid is a racialized project. If you're a lead auditor sitting in a scarce, pale-skinned environment, you look at the rest of the world, the ones that were on the Super Bowl halftime show, the melanin-rich, resource-abundant village of the global South, you see it as a variance to be corrected. You see it as a surplus that belongs to you.
White supremacy is the security guard for the global raid. It creates a hierarchy that says some villagers matter and some don't. It allows the lead auditors to mine the cobalt, the lithium, and the labor of the others without feeling the communion pulse. It's the storm god's chosen people logic, updated for a global supply chain. Oh boy.
And as the physical resources run dry, the raid turns digital. We're now mining the human subconscious. The data raid is the new colonialism. They aren't just taking your land anymore. They're taking your attention and selling it to the highest bidder on the ledger.
Or worse yet, they're learning from you to then
replace you
with the AI, who's learning everything through you. We have reached the end of the audit. We've seen the bill and its debt that can never be paid. The storm god system is a closed loop that ends in total consumption. But here's the secret. The lead auditors don't want you to know. The ledger only exists if you believe in the numbers.
Casey Malone says she's not fucking available for the opinions of the men in power anymore. That's the sound of a fence breaking. When you stop looking for external fulfillment from a system that is designed to keep you hungry, you become dangerous to the storm god. You become a neighbor.
Or like they like to call you an enemy combatant, a terrorist, a communist, a Marxist, or whatever else. The Exodus isn't about running away to the woods. It's about reverse engineering your own life. It's about looking at every transaction and asking, can I turn this back into a relationship? It's about looking at the independent box you live in and realizing that the lock is on the inside.
The village is not a memory. It is a biological necessity. We are the only species that tries to survive alone, and it is killing us. The capital C change is the return to the law of the circle. It's recentering the children. It's protecting the vulnerable, like those that were in that meeting yesterday.
Yeah.
It's deciding that enough is a better goal than more.
And I've always said that. Why take more than you could eat in a certain amount of time? Leave things for others. The storm god wants you to fear scarcity. You're never scarce. The village knows abundance. Scarcity is what happens when you're alone. Abundance is what happens when you share. The reversal is realizing that the tokens were always a lie and the neighbors were always the wealth.
We are the 300,000-year-old hardware. You and I. The system is a 10,000-year-old glitch. It's time to reboot.
Mm-hmm.
It's time to tend the garden. It's time to build the silent village in the shadows of the high road.
And I can't help but the Garden of Eden. It's like it's all been created to make us feel like we're bad. We got kicked out of the garden, and now we have to till for our food. We have to work and sweat our, and it's like, and all for the Oz, the man above, and it's just such,
The emperor who has
no clothes. The Epstein files, the corporate raids, the digital fences, they are all part of the same dying ledger. Let them burn. We don't need them to know who we are.
Look at the person next to you, not as a competitor, not as a resource, but as a piece of your own self. And that is the only way out.
The audit is closed. The ledger is empty.
The village is here. Welcome home.
Well, we talked about fencing the land and the body, but let's talk about the most precious resource a storm god ever stole: your time. In the village, time wasn't a number. It was a season. You planted when the rain came. You slept when the sun went down. You weren't productive or unproductive. You were just alive.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
But the ledger can't audit a season. It needs units. It needs hours, minutes, and seconds. The system had to take the communion pulse of nature and turn it into the clock of the auditor. They taught us that time is money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something to be spent, saved, or wasted. Suddenly, if you're just sitting with a neighbor, you aren't connecting. You're losing time.
This is the individualist virus applied to the very fabric of reality. By making us feel like time is a scarce resource, the system ensures we stay in a state of raid mentality. We're always rushing. We're always behind. And when you're always behind, you don't have time to be a neighbor. You only have time to be an asset.
Think about the concept of the weekend. It's the ultimate proof of the fence. The system owns 5 days of your life, and they grant you 2 days to recover so you can be a better asset on Monday. Even our rest is audited. We recharge our batteries like we're machines, not humans.
In the village, there was no weekend because work and life weren't separate. Helping your neighbor build a house was work, but it was also a party. Tending the garden was work, but it was also a prayer. By separating work from life, the storm god ensured that work would eventually eat life whole. Let's look at the dinner table. In the village, the meal was the communion pulse in its purest form. You ate what the land gave, and you ate it with everyone. It was the moment the surplus was shared. But the storm god realized that a shared table is a dangerous thing. It's where people talk. It's where they realize they don't need the lead auditor.
So the system enclosed the table. They gave us convenience. They turned food into a product that comes in a box, for one. They told us that TV dinners and fast food were freedom for the busy worker. In reality, it was just another way to break the circle. Now we eat alone, staring at a screen that's auditing our attention while we consume a product that's auditing our health.
And look at where the food comes from. It's no longer from your neighborhood farm. It's from a global raid on the soil. We're eating scarcity, everyday food that was grown with chemicals on the land that's being mined into dust. We're literally consuming the storm god's logic 3 times a day.
The reversal starts at the table. It's one of the easiest ways to build the silent village. When you cook a meal and invite people over, not for a special occasion, but just because it's Tuesday, you're performing a raid on the system's loneliness.
When we grow a tomato in the shared garden, we are reclaiming the dirt. We are telling the storm god, I don't need your ledger to feed my soul. A shared meal is the ultimate off-ledger act. It's where the individualist virus goes to die. And notice what they do. There's always groups of people feeding the homeless. They're actually making that a crime. And they actually, cops go in there and they make them like pack up and go.
Kids like selling lemonades on the street and they get stopped.
We have audited the world. We've seen the storm god's hand in our time, our food, our bodies, and our minds. The debt is enormous. But here's the thing about the ledger. It's made of ghost ink. It only has power if we stay inside the fence.
Casey Malone's message is the exodus we've been waiting for. It's the realization that the village isn't a dream. It's our history, and it's our destiny. The system is 10,000 years of raid. We are 300,000 years of circle. We are, believe it or not, the majority.
The fences are falling. The storm is passing. The garden is ready.
And the village is open. So we just need to walk through the gate.
Yeah. So, I know that we live like domesticated animals, and many of us don't have a green thumb, and it's it's kind of hard. I mean, back in the day, I had my garden. I had bought a house and I learned how to grow a bunch of things. So if I could do it, anybody could do it. I mean, it's just a matter of, are you willing, to take the time to do these things?
I know, because I mean, connecting back to our neighbors, connecting back to our community, doing things together.
Yep.
I mean,
that's important.
I think that started COVID, kind of helped do some of that too.
Yeah. They didn't realize it was going to backfire on them. But I think we're waking up as a species. I think we're realizing that our government is not our friend, is not there for us, is there to protect the predators, is there to protect each other, the elites, the corporations. Don't think for a moment they care about you.
Oh, they certainly don't. Well, there's a poem that I just had AI create for this episode, and it says, "For generations, the engine has been running, not roaring, humming.
Steel and signal, grain and ledger, policy layered on policy until the structure felt like sky.
We were born beneath it, learned its rhythm before we learned our own, called it progress, called it order, called it the only way.
And slowly, what surrounded us began to define us, the hurry, the tally, the quiet fear of falling behind.
We mistook momentum for destiny, scale for permanence, inheritance for inevitability.
But no structure is scarce. No architecture is, sacred. No architecture is eternal. It's small, no letters.
No system is total. The moment we see it clearly, it changes. The moment participation becomes deliberate, its grip loosens.
Resilience is not rebellion. It is remembering.
Hands that build, neighbors who know one another, skills passed across the table instead of purchased through a screen. It is the widening of options, the quiet multiplication of capacity.
And when options expand, control contracts. Power depends on inevitability, on the belief that there is no outside, no alternative, no beyond.
Remove inevitability and power becomes conditional. The engine will continue, cities will glow, institutions will endure.
But they will not define the horizon because we are older than the ledger, wider than the grid, deeper than the market.
We are larger than the structures we inherit, larger than the systems we participate in, larger than the architecture that surrounds us.
Hope is not collapsed. Hope is evolution. And evolution begins the moment we decide that what contains us is not the ceiling.
You were not meant to live alone.
Yeah, definitely not meant to live alone. And that's one of the reasons we moved back to Silver City, because this is a place that has community. It's a place that people talk to each other. Like, I've always gone to gyms and barely had conversation with people in gyms. And the gym here, it's like we start, to know everybody, and everybody talks to each other. And
we lived in Mesa area for years,
3 years,
and we never really had that.
Had a few people talk to me, but not like this place.
That. I think Planet Fitness over there, we had something,
but not like this. Really and our neighbor, from the beginning, she baked us some sort of banana nut bread or zucchini bread. And, she gave us her number when she was going away so that if anything funny happened in the house, we could call her and so forth and so on. So, so this place fits that bill, and we tend to be kind of loners, but here we've had a lot more socialization. We go to a monthly meeting where there's LGBT people and things of that nature, which is important. It's important.
Yeah, it is. It's important to keep that sense of community in a world where it constantly vies for our individual attention and promises connection, but delivers
nothing
in return.
Nothing in return.
More isolation.
Totally. All right, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. As again, I'll ask, please subscribe if you haven't done so and share. And don't be shy on the comment sections, or if you have any questions or anything that you would like to have us discuss, you could always email us. Let's see if I got the email written down here somewhere. transitionradioshow@gmail.com. Here we go. If you're interested in sponsoring, advertising, or being on Transition Radio Show, please send us an email to transitionradioshow@gmail.com with any questions or concerns or anything of that nature. We always love to hear from you guys. We thank you, and hope you guys have a great weekend. It's Friday tomorrow already.
Oh, wow.
It just seems like time just flies. Every week just goes, and every day there's something crazy in the news. It's something about they shut the El Paso airspace because of some sort of balloon. Everything's always a balloon.
Yeah.
And they were testing out some laser weapon or some crazy thing. I mean, it's never a dull moment in planet Earth anymore.
No, not anymore.
Not anymore. I think we're pretty much desensitized.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. All right, guys. We love you. But remember to always love yourselves too. Good night, and catch you next Tuesday. Same time, same station. Bye-bye.
Another journey's end, but the path is ever bright. Transition radio's call, guiding us through the night. Truth and healing's found, making you whole. Transition. Let the spirit take flight. Carry the light and make it Join us next time for more stories untold. Transition Radio, where new